Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Mind Muscle Connection podcast. Today is a solo episode, and I'm really excited to do this episode today. And I'm going to talk about body composition and how it's the key to how you look, feel, and perform. And so this is important to me because lately I've been kind of, again, I'm still obviously we're talking about body composition, so building muscle, losing fat, like that's still obviously at the heart of all this. But I think it's important to kind of to talk about the health side of things and how again, your body composition, not your weight, really says a lot about overall health and just how your body feels. I think too often people tend to look at the body composition stuff from like a looks standpoint, and again, that's fine. That is part of it. But we need to look at the health benefits and how it makes us feel from day to day, because again, I think it makes it more likely that we are able to stick with what we do, and it can also kind of change our strategy around training and nutrition as well. So really today, I want to kind of set the tone here of, maybe just so you can see if this is you, right? So, you've been working hard, you're hitting the gym, you're eating healthy, you're tracking your calories, and you're staying consistent, but maybe you still feel like tired and sluggish all the time. Okay. So from day to day, you're just, not feeling your greatest. It's like, hey, I'm doing all this, but why do I not feel as great as I could? Maybe you're struggling to change your body, right? Despite working out 4+ times per week and tracking your calories, you don't really feel like you're building the muscle you should. And you also feel like you're not really losing body fat as you should. So it's like, okay, I'm tracking my food. I'm working out 4+ times per week, working hard in the gym. Why are things not happening? Or maybe you're just also wondering why your body isn't responding the way it used to, right? So again, in the past, it's like no matter what you did, you saw a nice improvement, but now, you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s or beyond, and it's like your body just isn't responding the way that it used to. It's not that you necessarily really changed too much, but what exactly is going on here? Okay. The big thing is if your body composition, which is your balance of muscle and fat, okay, so we're not just looking at scale weight here, that's something that we take into consideration, but we're looking at your balance of muscle and fat. If it's not optimized and you're just focusing on the scale, it can make everything harder despite you working hard. Okay. Your body composition isn't just about how you look, it directly impacts how you feel and how you function every day. And so, as a coach, I just see so many people frustrated because they're, doing all the right things, right? They're tracking their calories, they're working out, but they're still not feeling or looking their best. So if you feel like this is you, this episode's going to break down exactly why body comp and not just your weight is really the key to unlocking real progress, and how your body comp is basically telling you, how you feel, but then also your ability to actually change your change your physique and everything like that too, right? So again, it's kind of it's that catch 22, right? Where it's like, hey, you obviously want to improve it, but also where you're currently at is also making it harder to change your body until we actually focus on what that scale weight is made up of. So I first want to talk about why body composition is key, right? And so we're going to start on the muscle building side of things, and then we'll go to the fat loss, the fat side of things, and how that's impacting things. So again, muscle, yes, it looks good, but it's not just for aesthetics. It's one of the most metabolically active tissues in our body. And so it means it burns more calories in general than, say, body fat does, right? Again, it's not a ton. It's not like by itself while you're resting, it's not going to burn a lot more calories, but it is going to burn a little bit more. It's typically throughout the entire day that we see the biggest benefits, right? It's like, and all these kind of go hand in hand. So yes, at rest, if we were just resting, muscle doesn't really add a ton of energy expenditure throughout the day. It's not really going to increase your calories a ton. There's kind of that misconception that it does. It's not really a lot. However, we need to zoom out. So muscle, now if we have more muscle, we're probably a bit more active. And so because of that, now we have more muscle, that's going to use more energy it's going to increase your energy expenditure because you just are probably a bit more active. And so that's an indirect thing there. It helps with insulin sensitivity, which we'll go over. It kind of helps your body utilize the food you give it. So it directs it into the right places. And then, if you are, muscle weighs something and we're not trying to lose that. So, if you're just focused on scale weight and seeing that trend down, a smaller body will expend less energy throughout the day. So we also are at a little bit of a higher body weight. Now, again, we don't want to be too high body weight because no matter what, even if we have, a ton of muscle, but we're way overweight for our height, that's probably not great from a long-term health perspective. So there is that fine line. But in general, a lot of people try to be as small as they can in terms of weight, and that can be an issue. Whereas, if you're 180 pounds and you have a lot more muscle versus you're 160 or 150, but you don't have as much muscle and you're just smaller, that is going to impact your how many calories you burn throughout the day, right? So again, the big thing here is how it impacts our daily energy expenditure. And some of it is direct, but some of it is indirect as well too. So again, we also have energy utilization during movement. So obviously muscle powers every movement you make, from walking to lifting to groceries to working out. And so, because of that, like we're obviously expending energy there, makes sense, right? But a stronger, more muscular body performs tasks with less strain, right? Which allows you to push harder and potentially burn more calories during workouts, so it's an indirect thing there where it doesn't, it's not as much strain to if we have a little bit more muscle versus body fat. And so again, it can help from that perspective, right? It can help kind of with everyday tasks and it allows you to do a bit more as well too. And that again is something that indirect kind of energy expenditure thing there. Like I talked about, improved insulin sensitivity. So muscle acts like a sponge for blood sugar, helping your body use carbs and excess energy more effectively, right? So the more muscle you have, the better glucose control you have, lower blood sugar spikes, which again probably is going to be, there's some back and forth on if that's impactful or not, but really high blood sugar spikes and those that last for long periods of time, probably not great for your overall health. So again, we can kind of get back to normalcy when we have more muscle, and that's going to lead to fewer energy crashes as well too, right? Because a lot of times what you see is, people's blood sugar will spike and then it comes, and then maybe if it comes up really high, that can mess with your energy and how you feel, and that can lead to energy crashes. So again, muscle is going to support metabolic health, which in turn it also helps reduce fat gain and it improves energy stability throughout the day, right? So we're going to feel just a little bit better throughout the day. We're not going to have those energy crashes. Then we have the hormonal benefits of muscle, right? So obviously, when it comes to testosterone, muscle in itself isn't necessarily going to increase that, but if we have the right amount as women, and then if we have testosterone levels that are in normal range for men, that can be helpful in terms of how you feel from day to day there. Whereas like body fat usually leads to the higher body fat. So if you're male, higher body fat levels will help, basically testosterone aromatizes into estrogen, which is going to cause you to not feel as great, right? And it's going to lower your testosterone levels there. So again, it's helpful from that standpoint. Another big one are myokines. So muscles release anti-inflammatory compounds called myokines, which help reduce inflammation caused by excess fat, and those improve overall health. So we also get a little bit of an anti-inflammatory benefit by having muscle, right? So muscle enhances hormonal balances and reduces chronic inflammation for better recovery and health. So, really the day-to-day benefits of building muscle and having more muscle in general are going to be easier everyday tasks. You're not going to struggle with stairs, heavy bags, or yard work. You're going to be able to do these things much more easy, right? Like you're almost going to just be able to feel like you can get more done throughout the day because we have more muscle relative to body fat, right? We're going to have steady energy levels. It's going to help you avoid midday crashes and sugar cravings as well too. So again, that's going to be another big benefit. So if you're someone who struggles with cravings, again, your body composition may be something here, and having some muscle will help with that. We're going to have improved sleep and recovery, right? Muscles are going to help, they're obviously anti-inflammatory, like we talked about, there's some anti-inflammatory properties with them, generally if we have more muscle, we're probably a little bit more active, so that's going to help us improve our sleep, and you can feel more recovered, right? So you're going to wake up refreshed and ready to move to start your day. We have the physical confidence, right? You feel stronger, more capable, and ready to really do anything there. And obviously the aesthetic benefit of it is a confidence booster as well too. And we have a little bit more freedom with food. So we talked about how it can slightly increase your metabolism, and then it's usually a lot of the indirect stuff there, right? So it gives us more flexibility in our diet. We don't feel like we have to eat 1,100 calories to drop weight, and then we have to eat 1,200 to maintain. Again, that's just a tough spot to be in today's modern environment. You're kind of setting yourself up to struggle there. So again, there's going to be a ton of benefits of adding muscle in terms of how we feel, how we perform. And so again, we want to make sure that we are, focused on the muscle building side. I think the big thing here that I wanted to bring up is just not only how muscle is going to make you, that's the main reason why people do it, but also how it makes you feel from day to day. And I think some of those benefits go unnoticed. And here's the thing, you don't necessarily have you don't have to be bodybuilder style to reap these benefits, right? I think we want to look at trends and we want to see things trend in the right direction. So really our goal is to, and I'll tie all this in at the end, but our goal is to start to add more muscle, or at least place a little bit more emphasis on things that we know are going to add muscle, right? And again, I'm going to talk about why people struggle to build muscle at the end of this, but that's kind of my main takeaway here is, one, you don't need to necessarily be bodybuilder Like you don't need to be a freakishly large human being. We want to have enough muscle, right? And that's going to look different for everybody, and it's going to come down to how much time you want to put into it. But really what this means is we probably want to spend a minimum of 2 to 3 days per week doing some form of resistance training. Okay. Now you can take it further than that if you want. And obviously there's some other things in terms of lifestyle that we'll go over. But again, I wanted to kind of go over, okay, how much do we specifically need and what does that look like? And I think a good place to start is a minimum of 2 to 3 days per week where we are resistance training. I'm going to talk about the training side of things in a little bit more detail, but that's the best place I can say, or the best kind of where we want to go with this right now. And I'll obviously break this down in a little bit. All right. So let's talk about body fat. So excess body fat, again, body fat levels, just having more body fat than say muscle, right? Again, I'm going to give you some kind of crude numbers to go off of here after I go over this. But again, I kind of want to go over, okay, if we have a little bit more body fat, but again, you can have higher levels of body fat at a relatively moderate weight. Okay. So this isn't just scale weight. It's not like, hey, you have to be, 300 plus pounds to see this, right? I think this can start to show up even if you are at a moderate rate or shoot, even a low body weight, right? I feel like this can start to impact you. So, all right, let's talk about higher levels of body fat and how it can impact you. So first, chronic inflammation. Okay. So fat tissue, especially visceral fat, is metabolically active and releases pro-inflammatory cytokines, right? So this is the opposite of muscle, and this creates a state of low-grade chronic inflammation in the body. So too high of body fat, and typically when we start to accumulate more levels of body fat, we usually have a little bit more visceral fat. So there are two types of fat, subcutaneous and then visceral, and visceral being the one that is usually the one that we really want to look out for. But in general, we want to look at our overall body fat levels, and I think as they get higher and higher, you'll start to see this show up. And obviously depending on certain things, I think I have an episode coming out on fat gain and what that looks like in the midsection. I don't know if that is out yet. Well, I just looked and I don't have that out yet. I did make a social media post on it if you are interested in that there. So again, chronic inflammation, this is going to lead to this low-grade chronic inflammation, right? So we're not looking at like high levels of inflammation, but it's that low-grade chronic inflammation that's always just kind of floating around in the body, right? And this can damage tissues, impair recovery, and contribute to conditions like insulin resistance, cardiovascular disease, and joint pain, right? So now we're looking at, okay, hey, a little bit higher levels of body fat, again, is going to start to bleed into how you feel as well too from day to day. Then we have hormonal dysregulation, okay? So first we have leptin resistance. So fat cells release leptin, a hormone that regulates appetite. Excess fat can cause leptin resistance, meaning your brain doesn't receive signals that you're full, which can lead to overeating. Okay. So you almost get this to this point to where, our body is good at regulating this, but when we start to gain too high levels of body fat, there is leptin resistance. So it's like you just kind of feel like you're always hungry. It's hard to feel like you can ever get full. Okay. So this is going to lead to you just having those extra hunger and cravings throughout the day. Also, insulin resistance, right? So high levels of body fat impair insulin signaling, making it harder for your cells to absorb glucose. This leads to elevated blood sugar and increases the risk of type 2 diabetes there. And then, right, so the hormonal dysregulation is going to kind of have to do with how your body utilizes the food you give it and the hunger and craving side of things, which can lead to overeating. So, if you have higher levels of body fat, you may feel like it's harder to fat loss diet and lose weight because you're there. So, again, you can start to see this conundrum of like, well, obviously people who have higher body fat levels want to change their body composition, but you can see where it can start to make it harder, especially if, again, like I said, we can be at higher body fat levels at a moderate weight. So again, this is why it's crucial to focus on our body composition, right? So I want to keep kind of hammering that there. We have reduced metabolic flexibility. So metabolic flexibility refers to the body's ability to switch between burning fat and carbohydrates for energy. Excess body fat can impair this process, making your body rely more on carbohydrates and less efficient at mobilizing stored fat for energy. This can lead to fatigue, poor workout performance, and again, this can cause some difficulty losing body fat. This doesn't mean that, when we say we burn fat for energy, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're burning body fat and like losing body fat. It's just, the energy that we use, where your body basically takes that energy from that it's going to use. But, this can make fat loss a lot tougher if we're not good at switching there back and forth between this. So again, there's that. We obviously have cardiovascular health risk. High levels of body fat increase blood pressure, raise LDL, lower HDL, and promote plaque buildup in arteries. And these factors significantly raise the risk of heart attack, stroke, and other cardiovascular diseases. Decreased physical function and mobility. Excess fat increases the load on joints, particularly in the knees, hips, and lower back. And over time, this can lead to joint degeneration and reduce mobility and chronic pain. So this obviously limits physical activity, and this can make the cycle of weight gain a lot more challenging there. The psychological effects, right? So excess fat is linked to increased levels of inflammatory cytokines in the brain as well. Okay, so we also have that, which can impair mental health. Additionally, societal pressures and self-esteem issues contribute to increased rates of depression and anxiety. So again, it can reduce your overall quality of life and motivation for health improvement. So it's kind of this just vicious cycle, right? And so again, how's this going to like show up in our day to day? Well, you're going to feel more tired. And so, maybe you rely a little bit more on caffeine, and then you have more caffeine and now your sleep's not as good. Every little bit of activity you do is just going to feel a lot harder. So it's going to be harder to kind of push through with that. We have those constant cravings and hunger. And so you find yourself, constantly eating and still feel hungry. And so again, that can lead to an excess of calories being consumed. Workouts feel harder, right? So again, you're just going to feel like everything is a bit harder. It can be harder to lose weight, right? So these hormonal imbalances and metabolic inflexibility can make it harder for your body to lose body fat, right? So even when you cut calories, it's still very challenging. And then on top of it, you have these higher hunger and cravings as well, less motivation to work out. So you can see where it's this kind of vicious cycle there. Again, achy joints and back pain. So again, you just obviously, this extra weight puts added stress on your joints. And again, that can cause some issues there. And then mood swings and mental fatigue. So chronic inflammation and blood sugar fluctuations contribute to irritability and difficulty focusing. So, if you feel on edge or you just feel foggy mentally and you're struggling to get through work or family time, like again, this is something where it can impact you. So again, how much body fat? Same thing here. We probably want to start to see things trend in the right direction. And, you could hear all this and be like, well, crap, I'm screwed. Like I have higher body fat levels. There's just nothing I'm going to be able to do with that. But again, if we place the right stimulus on the body, on which I'm going to talk about, we can start to see things trend down in the right direction. Again, I'm going to talk about how people generally go about it and how that's not the right way there. So when you optimize body composition by building muscle and reducing excess fat, you're setting yourself up for long-term health and vitality. Okay. So again, body composition, not just weight, is a strong predictor of longevity and health span. So, now we're looking at not only right now, but also long-term as well too. So again, we have improved metabolic health. So we know that muscle is going to improve insulin sensitivity. So you're going to regulate blood sugar more effectively. So it's going to improve your metabolic health. Energy and mood is going to be a lot better, right? More physical resilience as well. And then we obviously have the aesthetic benefits of it. And then obviously from a longevity standpoint, research shows that muscle mass is a critical predictor of long-term health and longevity. People with more muscle are more likely to live longer and stay functional as they age. So again, we also have that. So again, the longevity aspect for it. And unfortunately, as we get older and older, it does get tougher to build muscle. So really the best thing here is as early as you can, we want to start to prioritize adding some muscle, right? So again, when people say, oh, hey, I'm just going to wait, I just need to get this weight off. It's like, that's a mistake. We need to make sure that we are adding some muscle in the process. And like I said, depending on where you start too, it's like, it's not going to take a lot to build more, especially if you're someone who's maybe never focused on this in the process. So I want to kind of talk about numbers here and things that we want to look at in terms of, okay, so how do I know where I'm at? And then I'm going to end this with common mistakes holding you back and how, I kind of work around those here. So let's talk about numbers. So when it comes to body fat numbers, I don't like to use body fat composition readers, tests, stuff like that. I just think that they're highly variable. They're very up to, like, there's a high measure of error that's pretty high. That's just, yes, it can give us an idea, but it can be high, and then this gets in people's heads, right? And it's not always accurate. So we have to be careful with it. So because of this, I usually don't have people take body composition measurements. I just find that they get in people's head more than anything. And to me, looking at trends of where things are trending over time is more important anyways, right? Because that's ultimately, like, we have to head in the right direction to get there anyways. And so to me, just looking at a number and then being like, this is where I'm at and I need to get to this number, that can feel very daunting, when at the end of the day, any improvement from where we're at in terms of adding more muscle and losing body fat is going to start to push us in the right direction. And it's going to start to make things feel a lot easier over time. But if we, let's say you take your body fat measurement and it says you're, 35 or 40%. And then it's like, hey, I'm going to give you some numbers here to potentially aim for here, just to give you an idea. You see that and you're like, oh crap, that seems very daunting. Whereas, hey, it's like, okay, if you're at 40% body fat, we're going to start to see improvements when we get down to 35. And then when we get down to 30, you're going to start to see all these improvements. So again, it's more about the trends, and there's things that we can look at that tell us that we're headed in the right direction. I'm going to go over those, but I do want to give people kind of some ideas of some numbers here to shoot for. And just again, with what I just said here, so don't put too much stock into these numbers. These are just general, very crude numbers to shoot for. And again, you can just kind of search online, what does X number kind of look like on person, right? So for men, I think we want to get our body fat percentage to around 15 to 20%. If you're above that, we probably want to get down to that. And again, we can do this multiple ways, and I'll talk about what that looks like. So we want to probably get it somewhere between 15 and 20%. You can go lower if you want to. There's, it's as you get lower and lower, you're going to have to be a little bit more dedicated. It's going to come with a little bit more. And then obviously, as we push too far, let's say you get like to sub 10% as for men, that's where you're going to start to, really start to see quality of life potentially suffer. And then you also have to make even more sacrifices. So again, I think 15 to 20% is a great number for people to be at most of the time. Again, if you want to push it a little bit further, 12 to 15% is great. And like I said, don't get too caught up in these numbers because there really is no great way to accurately measure this for sure. Okay. This is why with clients, I'm going to go over these numbers, but it's also like, hey, how do you feel in the process? Because that's also super important here. So again, it's also like, we have a crude idea of where you're at body fat percentage wise, but then we also need to pair that with how you feel from day to day, because as you can see, a lot of the things that I talked about lead to that. For women, we're looking at about 25 to 30%. Okay. So you're looking at about 10% higher than men there. Again, women can go lower than that. Once you get to that like 18 to 22% or lower, that's where you start to run into some like menstrual cycle issues. Again, you're just constantly hungry. Again, like overall health starts to take a little bit of a hit, right? When we start to get too lean. And again, you have to make more sacrifices, can start to impact your day to day, how you feel. So again, there is this range that we want to be at, and then we ultimately get to decide how much further we want to take it from there. And again, this comes back to like someone's like, oh, I want to be 10% body fat. It's like, okay, do you really? Like if you're at, say 30% and you want to get down to 10, it's like, let's get you to 15 to 20% first, get you there, and then from there we can start to see how you feel and we can push it more. Again, the reason why I don't like a big goal like that is because now someone's like, oh, hey, I need to get down to 10%. So what do? They're like, I need to lose body fat. So then they take these extreme approaches that aren't great for all the things we just talked about. And then now they're really struggling to get down to 10% because they're missed out on one key factor in that. So again, we can decrease our body fat percentage two ways. We can add more muscle without adding weight, which can happen, especially at higher body fat levels. And then two, we can do a combination. So there's three ways, right? We can lose body fat. And then three, we can do a combination. And again, for most people, that combination is where they need to be, okay? They need to have this combination of some fat loss, but also some muscle gain. Again, there's people that would benefit from just adding muscle without adding weight. And there's some people that and then within that, there's people that would maybe be better off focusing a little bit more on decreasing body fat percentage, but we still need to have some priority in terms of maintaining / still building muscle. And again, as I said, the higher your body fat percentage is, the higher likelihood you have of being able to build muscle in a deficit on there. All right. So if I don't take body fat percentage, how do we know what's going on here? So this is where we want to look at trends. Okay. Because like I said, we don't want to get caught up in these end numbers. It's more so these trends and where things are going, because even if you're at, let's say you're way over 15 to 20% as a male, you're way over 25 to 30% as a female, just trending down, you're going to start to see improvements with all these things. Okay. So it's not like, hey, once you have to get to 20% as a male, you have to get to 30% as a female to see these things improve. It's like, no, again, as we trend down, you're going to continue to see improvement. So what are things we want to look at? We want to look at our clothes. How are our clothes fitting? Again, that's a great sign that if clothes are fitting, you're getting looser, especially around your midsection, that you are losing body fat, and you're at least losing body fat and probably building some muscle, depending on where your scale weight is trending. I still use scale weight, but we have to take it with these other measurements as well too. Body circumference measurements, particularly around your midsection. So again, this is similar to the clothes fitting, but if weight's not necessarily moving a ton, but your midsection is trending down, that's a really good sign that you're losing body fat and building or maintaining muscle in that process, which is what we want. And progress pictures. Okay, so we can't underestimate just the impact of, is that improving? Are you losing fat in certain areas? Do you look more defined? Again, that's a really good sign that you lost body fat without having to get these exact numbers there. So that's how we go about finding this and finding those numbers. Again, unfortunately, there's not a surefire way to be like, hey, this is exactly where your body fat percentage is. Again, it's more about the trends there with that. So I want to talk about, if you're someone who maybe you are doing your training, you're tracking your calories, but maybe your body fat percentage is a little bit higher than you want, and it's like, why is this happening? Because again, we talked about how it makes you feel, but then also when our body composition isn't optimized, or we're not doing things that optimize our body composition, we're just focused on scale weight, that can change, that can make it tougher to change your body. All right. So what are the things? The big problem is that the way most people go about their health and fitness, it does not prioritize body composition. It prioritizes seeing weight trend down there. Okay, so from a training perspective, people do just random workouts. All right, they don't. They're just exercising. They're just trying to do workouts that burn the most calories. There's no game plan to their workouts. There's no system to progressing their workouts. It's just random. What's the toughest? What feels great in that moment? And again, there's no structure to their training. Okay, either in terms of they don't have any way to progress, but they also just do random stuff that is just feels hard and it's just random. And so, that's a training mistake. Again, from a programming perspective, maybe it's a over reliance on one modality versus the other, or maybe within your training, there's nothing that's, yeah, maybe you're weight training, but again, there's no progressive overload built in. There's no structure to it. So it's like you're lifting, but you're not sending a signal to build more muscle. Again, if you don't ever lift weights and you lift weights, even if it's random, you'll build some muscle, but eventually that will kind of slow down there. So again, we need to get on a structured program that is trying to get a specific adaptation, not just some workout that's just random and you just is whatever. Like, again, that's great, like to be active and to exercise. But if we're really trying to change our body composition, we need to be more structured with our training. Nutrition gaps. People do crash diets. They do overly restrictive eating, or only focus on calorie restriction without prioritizing muscle retention in the process. Okay. So again, it's like, well, I just need to get this weight off. So, they do a crazy crash diet, or a diet that just lacks a ton of vitamins and minerals, and just foods that are going to make you feel good. Overly restrictive dieting where someone just cuts out, an entire food group, or they do like a fasting protocol that's like 3 weeks long. Again, their calories and macros, if we want to go a little bit more advanced, aren't geared towards what they need there, right? It's just about some random number that they found and think that they need to stick with there. And again, not prioritizing protein, because again, we need to make sure that we get enough protein to help preserve lean body mass. Lifestyle neglect. So people ignore things like their circadian rhythm. They ignore, overall sleep hygiene. They ignore stress management. They ignore recovery. Again, these things are super important in this process. And if you're just trying to, if you have a lifestyle that's super stressful, you're just constantly go, go, go. You don't move outside of the gym. Your meal time is all over the place. You know, your sleep schedule's all over the place. You're like, you know what, I can only get 4 hours of sleep a night. It's like, that's going to impact your body composition, even if you're working super hard in this process. And again, I guarantee you, your body fat percentage will be a little bit higher if those things are off. So again, we want to make sure we are smart with what we do. And these are the common working hard, they're overlooking here. And so this brings up why I focus on 5 key pillars of body recomp. So I actually went over this in episode 546, the 5 pillars. But I'm going to briefly go over it again and why it's important. So again, we want to have structured progressive training. So we want a training program that's going to help us add lean body mass, but then also, there's some structured cardio in there to help with your overall cardiovascular fitness, and to help, indirectly with maintaining a leaner body composition. Then we have strategic nutrition, right? So we want to make sure we're eating enough protein. We want to make sure that we're managing our calories in a way based on what you need. Okay. So it's not just a super restrictive diet. It's not this cookie cutter, hey, here's the calories, go. Like we need to be strategic with our calories and making sure that we're eating enough. And maybe sometimes it's eating a little bit more, and then maybe sometimes we're eating a little bit less, but we're also making sure that we're getting in a good balance of macronutrients, protein, carbs, and fats. Our diet isn't lacking any sort of nutrition. We're getting at least some nutrient dense foods in our diet, right? And we're avoiding restrictive diets, right? Things that are just going to be void of any of that. Then we have daily activity. Okay, so this is the third pillar. So the importance of exercise outside of our structured workouts. This is maybe where you can have a little bit more fun with it, right? But we want to make sure we maintain activity outside of the gym. You don't have to move 20,000 steps a day, but if you just come home and you work out 1 hour of the day and you just push yourself super hard in that workout, and then the rest of the day you just sit on your ass and don't do anything, well, again, that's going to impact our body composition. So we need to make sure, we focus on activity outside of the gym as well too. And then we have lifestyle optimization, right? So we want to make sure that we're focused on good circadian rhythm, hygiene, sleep strategies. We have the right amount of stress, not too much, not too little. And we also have healthy ways to manage that stress. And then we have mindset mastery, right? So not only do we need to work on all these things, but we have to work on our mindset. Okay. So, we need to make sure that, hey, how do we deal with failures? How do we work on maybe not being perfect with everything? How do we deal with any challenges that arise? How do we talk to ourselves? Like, these are all things that, if that's lacking, it doesn't really matter. Like, this is all part of it, and you have to master that as well too. And so this is what I do in the Body Recomp Blueprint. And as I've talked about in the last couple of weeks, right now, my doors are open for it. This will be through the end of the month. So if you're interested in this, if you're someone who is struggling with changing your body composition, this is for you, right? You need to put more focus on your body composition and not just your scale weight there. So again, if you are interested in this, the doors are open. You can message me on Instagram, Body Recomp Blueprint, and we can chat about it, or you can fill out the link in the show notes there to schedule a call, and we can talk about how this can help you. So real quick, just want to kind of sum up this episode. So again, muscle is key to metabolism and energy. Excess fat impacts your health and recovery. And the key is improving our body composition. It transforms how you look, feel, and perform from day to day. And again, we need to focus on our body composition, right? So we need to have an approach that helps you with your body composition, not just some random cookie cutter or just some random, hey, I'm just exercising, following X amount of calories. We need to have a structured plan to get that there. And once you can get your body composition in a good spot, you're going to feel much better. You're going to be able to maintain that body composition much easier. Your body's going to be more receptive to change. So if you're someone who is struggling with, well, once we can get this nailed down, you're going to have a much easier time maintaining that weight. You're not going to have to worry about gaining 20 pounds because you went off plan for 2 weeks. Again, things are just going to happen more naturally. If you want to maintain for a little while and then it's like, you know what, hey, I have a trip coming up, I want to cut in 6 weeks. Well, you can do that within, 6 to 10 weeks and look lean. But again, it requires us to first strip away what we have always done and change our mindset towards this. And again, focus on improving our body composition there. So again, if you have any questions on this, let me know. Like I said, the Body Recomp Blueprint is open. So if you're interested in that, you can DM me on Instagram or click the link in the show notes to set up a call. That's it for me. I will chat with you guys soon.